Hi, welcome to the Froggy Five. I'm your host, Jim Fralick, founder and managing partner of Froggy Companies, where when it comes to real estate, you can't stop the hop. I'm excited today to be joined by Brian Davis. For those who don't know him, and that means if you don't know him, you're not reading much online about real estate because he is a pretty prolific writer and he's out there everywhere. And that's how I came to meet Brian. So Brian's a real estate investor, personal finance writer. He's co-founder of SparkRental, which serves both active and passive investors. Actively, they provide tons of free content and tools to people who are managing rentals across the country. But then they also run a passive real estate investing club that is kind of unique. I'll let him talk about it, but it's accessible for people who want to invest as little as $5,000 and people who normally wouldn't have access to these deals if they're not accredited. So I can let him talk about that. He's also an educator along with his partner for like Fire Course Financial Independence, Retire Early. A lot of people know about that movement, but they have a whole course and just a ton of stuff. He's been doing it for over 2 decades. He lives a lot of his time abroad, lives life on his own terms, it seems like now lately. So Brian, welcome. Glad you're here today.
Jim, thank you so much for having me.
Great. So I'm going to start in the beginning because they say it's a very good place to start and ask you how you came to be.
Oh man, how long do you have? No, I'll keep it really quick and simple. Short version. Graduated college, had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. Fell into a job working for a hard money lender, and this was back in the early to mid aughts. Everybody's making money in real estate. So I'm working with real estate investor clients all day, right, as borrowers for hard money loans. So I plow a whole bunch of money into rental properties myself. I'm doing BRRRR deals and flips, and I think that I'm just like crushing it, right? And then 2008 comes along and just slaps me right upside the head. Worst, I got hit from both sides because not only did my investments do horribly from that point forward for a while, but I also lost my day job income, right? Because no one was borrowing hard money loans anymore, and I was working commission only as a loan officer, basically for a hard money lender. So I had to totally re-envision what came next. So I worked for an e-commerce company for a long time that serviced landlords and real estate investors. Got to learn that side of the industry, what digital marketing is all about and, online business. And in 2016, I founded or co-founded SparkRental with my partner, Deni Supplee. And that too has been quite a roller coaster of a journey. Like you said, we offer tools for active investors. When we first launched SparkRental, we thought our main business was going to be landlord software, property management software for mom and pop landlords. Excuse me. And then, a web developer ran off with half of our seed capital. So, it's just, and we did eventually launch that software, but it forced us to reimagine exactly what we wanted to do as a business. We wanted to be. So, we got into education and we started offering online courses, free courses, paid courses. We started creating tools for active real estate investors. And then at a certain point, so I've been overseas for 9 years now. At a certain point, I decided I didn't want to be a landlord anymore. So I got rid of all my rental properties, but that left me in an awkward position where I own a business that serves landlords and real estate investors, but I didn't actually own any real estate anymore. So, I started experimenting with passive real estate investments. Started with some crowdfunding investments, got into private equity and syndications. And it was around this time that my partner and I had started offering as an educational service for our course students, letting them go in on some deals with us, some real estate deals with us. And it was way too much work, actively buying properties, with our students as sort of a learning exercise. But we realized that passive real estate syndications, we could potentially do that. And that wouldn't necessarily be too much work to do. So we did a pilot deal, went well. And then we decided, well, let's open it up to the general public as an investment club where we get together once a month, we vet deals, we go into them together. Each of us can invest relatively small amounts. So it's kind of like an old school stock investment club where everyone gets together and, puffs on cigars or whatever, and, sips brandy in like a wood paneled room or something. And, but, instead of stocks and instead of the wood paneled room and the brandy and all that stuff, it's passive real estate investments. And our club is all online.
I'm in just for the brandy.
I know, man. Right? Me too.
I'm going to do that.
wish we could actually do that.
Have a webinar. We'll just bring it. We'll be like Don Draper and the guys that.
Exactly. How much fun would that be, right?
So yeah, well, thanks for sharing that journey. I am, because it's already got some perseverance laid in. Love the part about the web developer taking off with half your seed capital. That's a good one.
Not fun.
And it reveals some of your motivation as well, because I see you like to live life. Well, you're living life overseas, abroad most of the time, but I could just tell from reading some of the stuff you've written, the independence part of it is something that must motivate you a lot. Right?
It is. So yeah, I'm really big on independence in every form. When right after we moved abroad, so I had that job with that e-commerce company for 8+ years. Was their vice president, and ended up losing that job right after moving across the world to Abu Dhabi. The owner and I, we'd always kind of butted heads a little bit, but he really didn't like the fact that I had moved outside of the country. And so he let me go. But meanwhile, I'm living halfway across the world and had no network or contacts over there, right? Had no way of earning money. So that was a terrible feeling, that feeling. And, we've all been there, right? Everybody's lost a job. Everyone's had that feeling of, helplessness that comes with that, right? And I decided I did not want that feeling of helplessness ever again. I did not want to be dependent on someone else to pay my bills or earn a living ever again. So that's part of what motivated me to start an online business. But along the way, it's really hard to start a business. As you know, it's hard to get a business off the ground. It's way harder than the average person thinks. And what we ended up having to do to extend the runway, especially after that web developer ran off with half our seed capital. So my partner and I each had to go out and add extra income streams on the side to extend that runway, right? Because we didn't want to go out and get venture capital or take out heavy debts or loans to grow the business. So instead, we bootstrapped it by each of us setting up like side hustles, basically, to help make ends meet, while we're trying to get SparkRental off the ground. So for my partner, she's a realtor. So she just picked up her real estate business to help make ends meet. For me, I started freelance writing, and that was fortuitous in several ways. I mean, one, obviously the money helped, right? We were able to extend the runway to get SparkRental profitable. But beyond the money, writing, I'm every week and really every day, I was there writing about real estate, about the market, about stocks and investing, and innovations, like crowdfunding platforms as they came online. And I'm writing reviews of some of these platforms. So and then I end up putting some of my own money in experimentally, and it just made me a much better investor and a more informed investor. And it made my writing a lot better. When you're writing 10,000 words a week, you just become a better writer, right? I mean, you can't help it. So, all of these things have helped both my personal finances and my business immeasurably over the years.
That's great. It was your full circle Hemingway moment. You're overseas, like a movable feast. You're suddenly broke. You start pouring your heart into writing and coming up with side hustles, and being in that crucible took you to where you are today.
That's really part of being in business, is being open to those pivots, because you constantly have to change and adapt when you're in business. And often the business that you think you're in, or the business you think you should be in, are often not the business that the market wants or needs you to be in, right? So, and that's a lesson that we kind of had to learn. I don't know, I wouldn't say the hard way, but we had to learn on the fly, that I can't tell you the number of our students that asked us, hey, can we just invest with you guys? We're not ready to buy our own property yet, but we want to invest. I must have had 50 people ask me that question before I actually had the light bulb go off. Oh, maybe instead of just saying no without thinking about it, maybe we should actually consider this, right? Like, and that is part of being in business, is just being nimble, being agile, being willing to try new things and experiment, and being open to the idea that maybe your business is not or shouldn't be what you think it is.
I'm thinking about it right now. Like we talked a little bit before we started here about my new $18 million fund of funds. And we have, alongside that, our consulting business. And that is, when you have a lot of experience you can use in the consulting way, as opposed to creating this great system and then getting subscribers, you tend to want to just be hired as a consultant first. So you're still making sure you're paying your bills while you're waiting for the other thing to come up. So I want to take you back a little bit to your e-commerce days, but all kinds of things about a lot of tools. So I want to ask you about technology, either technology that you're using or what you see on the horizon of technology that is really changing the industry. And you can't just say AI and walk away from it, because everybody's AI. So you gotta give me something real.
So, oh man, a couple answers to that question. So one area that we are keeping an eye on is how real estate crowdfunding platforms online are changing the passive real estate investing industry. So, that's a relatively new phenomenon, really within the last decade or so. A couple of the bigger platforms like the Fundrises and the Ground Floors, so they launched a little over a decade ago, but they were really the first ones entering the field. There have been some platforms that have come and gone since then, and there's been a lot of innovation in the space, different business models. So, for example, fractional property ownership of like single family rental properties or small multifamily rental properties, that's really recent, within the last 5 years. With Arrived being the first one on the scene, coincidentally with their name, and then several others followed suit, and in some cases improved on the model. Arc7, for example, is a really small platform, which has a similar model to Arrived, but they added a secondary marketplace. You can buy and sell shares, your fractional shares, in rental properties in real time, which is a great feature. Lofty followed in that same business model, but they added a cryptocurrency component, sort of, where when you sell, you can sell your shares at any time on the market, but you get paid out in a cryptocurrency, not in US dollars, and then you have to convert it to US dollars. Anyway, so the point being that some of these platforms have the potential to disrupt the kind of stodgy, old school private equity real estate industry, which is, of course, where we operate as well. I mean, so we have an investment club that, but we're still investing based on individual relationships that we've formed with sponsors, right? We're still doing it in the old-fashioned way without any kind of novel technology, but it's an online investment club. So, we want to see whether some of these crowdfunding platforms, maybe will disrupt us out of business, right? Or maybe not. I mean, honestly, a lot of those platforms. So, we talked about how some of those crowdfunding platforms, they operate in all these different business models. There are a couple platforms whose model is to basically let you shop around different real estate syndications and funds. So, if that gets super, super easy and really streamlined technology, then it's possible that no one will need us anymore, right? I actually don't think that that's the case, because for two reasons. One is a regulatory reason, where inherently those platforms can only offer 506C syndications, because you can't publicly advertise 506B syndications. So they wouldn't be able to put them publicly on their website in a crowdfunding platform if they allowed non-accredited investors. And part of our mission is to serve non-accredited investors in addition to accredited investors. So we have some regulatory protection there from being totally disrupted out of business. And the other is that there's a community component with us, where we're all getting together and discussing these deals every month, and we benefit from every other person in the club and their unique expertise. So I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but I'll give you a really quick example. We've got a woman in our club who's an insurance adjuster. So every time we vet a deal, she's picking apart the insurance projections from the sponsors, right? Like, I don't have that expertise, but we all get the benefit of that expertise from that member. So anyway, so technology in real estate investing. So crowdfunding, potential to that will inevitably continue evolving, and we'll see how that unfolds. We've seen some of those platforms go out of business. So there is certainly risk there. Some of them have done quite well, have been quite stable over time. Ground Floor is probably my favorite of those. Other technology in the space. So we tried using a tech platform actually in the early days of our investment club, and we ended up abandoning it. I don't want to say which one it is because I don't want to badmouth them. But it's a tech platform that specifically serves syndication investors and allows people to go in on syndications together. And we left that platform because it was just too buggy. But there's room in that space for technology to improve that process, whether it's that particular company that improves their product or another company enters the space and just offers a much better product, right? So yeah, that there is some room there for technological advancement. I mean, AI is sort of a Pandora's box in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you got people like Elon Musk out there saying that by the end of 2025, AI will be smarter than people, and who knows if that's true or not. But if that is true, for maybe government grade AIs, right? I mean, really the really top end cutting edge ones. Then who knows how that could transform the space? I don't know how that could transform the space. I should probably give that more thought. But there is plenty of room there for disruption. At the end of the day, though, real estate is an old-fashioned industry. It's really, it's based on connections and networking. And ultimately, the safest investments that we make as a club are the ones where we have long-standing relationships with the sponsors, with the syndicators, and we know, like, and trust them, right? And you can't replace that with technology. No matter how good the technology gets, having a group of people who have invested for a long time with the same sponsor, knows their communication style, knows that they are really adept at solving hiccups as they come along, because there's always hiccups, right? I mean, as you know, I don't think that can really be replaced by technology. So I'm not that worried about being disrupted out of business by technology. I think the technology has room to improve the industry quite a bit and make certain things easier. But at the end of the day, real estate's, or at least this type of real estate, the passive real estate investing, it's about relationships. That's about people.
I agree. People still win out. Hopefully people keep winning out at the end of the day. Yeah. I could talk you to death about my thoughts on the AI space as well. And partnered with some of the tokenization platforms and crowdfunding. And I've invested in some like white label ones. I use Lofty, part of our fund here, maybe us bulk buying on Lofty, which creates a lot more due diligence for us. We have to go in to each one of those properties, and then, we'll get some type of discount for coming in bulk. That would be the advantage over our investment club, if you will. But again, fund to funds, I'm limited to when your hands are tied with 506c syndication.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
just look to paternalistic government if you want a boogeyman to blame there. You have all these. There are a lot of people out there who kind of complain and whine about, the richest get richer because they have access to better investments than the rest of us. And I'm like, yes, because of paternalistic government. Like, you guys brought this about with heavier regulations. Like, so don't complain about the unintended consequences of it. Like, this is what you wanted.
It's amazing to me because exactly. All my naive things is 25 years. I had a different career, and most of it was centered around systems engineering, military related, homeland security, things like this, as a program manager and an engineer. And then, but I had all these dreams and some false starts related to real estate, small real estate investing. And then my naive vision before the Jobs Act, long before that, was sort of, micro investing. So like, hey, I understand this enough that I can get 1,000, 2,000 military buddies together, veterans. We'll all just, we'll all own a piece of property, right? I'm the grew up poor, get a little bit of chip on my shoulder. Like, the poor people will rise up and we'll own all the real estate, was a little bit of my thought process. And then, that ran into like 1933 laws. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, a law from 1933 is telling me I can't for my protection, but if I make this much money and went down that rabbit hole. Yeah, you should write some more articles about that. But I'm on board. I think the blockchain portion that I've educated myself on in the last year and a half now, transactionally, I think that's going to make a huge difference at some point. I know the property company is doing that in a few states like that. If somebody can get that right, it seems hard to imagine because of deeds like here in New Hampshire, like we're really old fashioned, like you got to go down to the county courthouse, so it's hard to imagine that, but maybe.
Well, that's a great point, actually. And I actually have written about that before. How the blockchain has the potential to make real estate much more liquid, because if you don't have to go through the super expensive process of title work and title searches and that whole pay title companies thousands of dollars to do all that. If it's just publicly available and transacted on blockchain, then you make it a lot less expensive to buy and sell real estate, and you get those transactions happen instantly instead of the month-long delay while people have to do title searches and histories and all that stuff. But you bump up against the legal and regulatory challenges there, right? So no matter how good the technology gets, it doesn't matter if governments won't adapt to it, right?
Amen. And that's why we know that things have always moved pretty slowly in real estate, and I believe they'll continue to move slowly at some point, because even the construction technology and the ways we're looking at trying to do more affordable things and zero carbon emissions, you're running against every city and every town and every state and all the local building code policies where all these people have to be educated about the next latest thing. So you can't just suddenly have the next latest thing and now go implement a gray water system that's going to, keep you from paying any energy bills. So it goes down and down the hole. But I want to shift gears with you now and talk about. I want to get a warning from you about it. It could be about your tech guy running off with half the money, or it could be about real estate, like just some kind of warning, something, a hard lesson you've learned that now you've adjusted your business to based on that.
Oh man. All right. Well, I can give you a couple, and I'll keep them really quick. So one of the things, for anyone out there who's thinking about becoming a landlord yourself, cash flow is not the rent minus the mortgage. And it sounds so simple and so stupid. And, when I was in my 20s, I'm running around thinking that was true. And because that's what the average person thinks, right? They just don't know that you're going to have these irregular but inevitable expenses as a landlord, things like vacancy rate, things like repairs and maintenance, and costs like property management. Whether you outsource that or not, it is a labor cost. You can pay someone to do that labor, or you can do that labor yourself. But if you do that labor yourself, it's still a cost, right? It's still your time. I mean, when I first moved to Abu Dhabi, moved over there with all my rental properties, and it became glaringly obvious just how much I had been subsidizing those properties' returns with my own labor. So the returns that I was seeing on paper for just the money portion were skewed because I was putting in dozens of hours every month to keep those properties going, even though I had a property manager. So, if you took the value of my time and put $1 on that for my labor I was putting in every month on those properties, I was way underwater on those properties, right? So anyway, a quick rule of thumb, 50% rule. This will keep you conservative. 50% of the rent is going to go to non-mortgage expenses. And if you look at things through that lens, then you'll start saying, oh, well, how could I ever make money on a rental property? That's exactly the reaction that you should be having. It's hard. You can do it, and people do it, but it takes a lot of expertise and it takes a lot of work to find deals that good. So anyway, that's one. There are risks that come with passive real estate investments too. I mean, we have seen a couple deals go badly in our investment club. Now it's a low ratio of them, fortunately. We've done 20 some deals in the club, and we've seen one deal went very badly. One of them is doing a capital call. So it's yet to be seen how that will resolve itself. But these deals when we first started, or when I first started investing passively in real estate syndications, everyone kept saying, oh, vet the sponsor, vet the sponsor. And that's great advice. But part of the way that the average person, or at least the average new passive investor, vets sponsors is by asking around about their reputation, which you should do. And it does matter. But those two deals that have been a little shaky that we've done, they were two of the earliest deals we did. Those were with sponsors who had a stellar reputation in the industry, and they've both since really cratered. I mean, so reputation it does matter. You should ask about it. It's part of due diligence, but it's not everything. And you have to do your own due diligence beyond just asking a handful of other passive investors, what do you think about this person? It's a little odd. What we have found over the last 2 years in the much more challenging commercial real estate environment that we've been in, we've actually found that some of those really big name sponsors, and again, I can't say them because I don't want to be, sued for slander or whatever, but those big name syndicators, they were out there spending a huge amount of their energy building a brand and selling these kind of secondary services based on their brand, like coaching, like mastermind groups, that sort of thing. Whereas we've seen better success and better weathering of the storm over the last couple of years from the mid-range and even some smaller operators who they're just like laser focused on their property deals and making sure that those deals stay profitable. That's their only focus. They're not out there worrying about, building up their brand name or their thought leadership or any of that nonsense. Mm-hmm. They're not selling the $20,000 mastermind programs or whatever. They're just real estate people, and that is where the buck stops. Basically, they're going to make sure their deals perform hell or high water, and that's it. So, anyway, just a couple thoughts and observations that we've seen.
Yeah, that is great insight. I'll try not to pontificate over both of those too much, but the first one I'll say earlier on, I was going to say it took you 9 years to decide not to be a landlord, because it took me about 9 days. When we started what we thought would be our Froggy empire, and I had visions of a REIT and all this kind of stuff, and we'll manage stuff. And I said to my wife, well, you're better with people than me. Like, you're more assertive and you're better with contract. You'll be the property manager. And I quickly realized that. But then, seeing a few eviction processes and dealing with some late night things, and this is just locally, not managing from a distance. And then I have a sister who has a cabin in Georgia, and she sort of does it from a distance with the short-term rentals. My wife did short-term rentals and then long-term rentals. And speaking of independence, she finally just became independent on the last property, a couple months ago. Like, yay, you're free. You don't have to do that anymore. And this was with that property was with a friend, and we had helped rehab a place, and it was profitable to an extent, but we weren't really charging a lot of, property management fees related to that. But it's just, it's a nightmare. Some people want to be in property management and love that. And some people can pay for the margin, but like you said, you expect your margin to be a lot bigger for CapEx and OpEx and everything in there, and just know what you're getting into. The biggest thing, I think, though, that's still attractive in that area are the tax benefits. So if you can still be tied in and get all those tax benefits that are for those types of rentals, it's a step above the normal tax benefits you're going to get through passive investing, right? And then, I do due diligence. When I do due diligence, it's like
you go deep.
We go pretty deep. So if somebody's hiding something, we'll know it. Or other people might just gloss over that, surprisingly. But if you're placing $50,000 of someone else's money, you better know that you've covered your tracks on that front, right? But then the deal itself, you got to know the deal, and you got to know, is there a backup plan to this deal, and are you lying to yourself? I think we just get hundreds of deals every day in our inbox right now, and I feel like most of them aren't that good. People are still counting on appreciation. People are still saying we're going to build this to a 7 cap and sell it at a 5 cap, or we're going to refinance this 100 unit and we're going to raise rents. And it's just deal after deal where I just look at it and say, forget if the sponsor's got a stellar reputation. A lot of the ones with stellar reputations are in a situation where they have a standing army to feed, or where they have a lot of money they have to deploy. And that's what I find. Then people are, regardless of how much they can buy in bulk and get some kind of discounts because of their money, a lot of them are making what we would deem as small guys to be a marginal room for error.
Yeah. Well, so to tie together two things that you just touched on, actually, property management and how these sponsors operate. One of the things that we have really honed in on in our investment club is looking at property management risk and construction risk. And we're agnostic about whether that's vertically integrated by the sponsor, right? Whether the sponsor is doing the renovation and construction work, whether they're doing the property management versus whether outsourcing it. Our concern is how many deals have you done with the team who's handling your property management and with the team who's handling the construction. Whether it's in-house or whether it's outsourced, doesn't matter. It's, have you done 20 different property deals with the same property management team? If so, that's pretty low risk, right? I mean, you have a long, deep track record with them, and that they will be able to execute and manage your properties well. If it's your first deal hiring this property manager, that is a different ballgame, right? And the same goes for construction teams who are handling renovation projects. So what is the sponsor's history with the property management team and with the construction team? That's something that we've paid a lot of attention to, because the deals that we have seen either within our own, the deals that we've invested in, or deals we've seen other people invest in that have had a hard go of it over the last year or two, inevitably, poor property management and or poor construction management has played a role. Doesn't mean it's the only thing that's gone wrong. What we usually see is a cascade of problems. They say that when a plane goes down, on average 7 things went wrong. It's not one thing doesn't cause the plane to go down. It has to have that cascade of problems. It's the same thing really with syndications. There's a cascade of problems, but bad property management or bad construction management are almost always part of that cascade. So if you can cut out that risk or cut it to near zero, it can never be absolutely zero, but if you can cut it to near zero with a team that has been operating in this market repeatedly for dozens of properties together, that cuts out a huge chunk of the risk.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. I learned that from my mentor at Promanus, John Bogdasarian. Definitely the problem solving. When you see teams that have worked together multiple times, that have problem solved multiple times, it takes out a lot of risk, especially if they're in the same city and they're solving those same problems again and again. You're like, okay, take a lot of variables out. Yeah.
We like that. We like to see sponsors who they live and they operate and invest right there in one city. They know it inside and out. Obviously that can present diversification challenges for them, but not for us, right? I mean, we want to invest. We want diversification by spreading small amounts among a lot of different deals, but we want each of the sponsors and deals that we invested, we want them to be really specialized, right? So we get the benefit of their specialization, but we get to diversify among a bunch of them. So that's what we love. We love that deep, narrow niche specialization with sponsors.
Absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. So within these types of deals, can you share like one of your favorite deals? Something that you're just like out of your mind about because it went so well? Or if not, maybe a method if you've got, something.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a couple examples for you. Now, none of these deals have gone full cycle, right? So I can't, say, we earned 50% annualized returns on these, but I can give you a couple examples of things that we've liked that we've invested in as a club. One of them is, we talked about niches just a moment ago. There's a sponsor who we invested with recently, actually, but their niche is Section 8 overhang, where they go out and they buy a LIHTC property, low income housing credit, tax credit property that limits the amount of money that the tenants can come out of pocket for rent, right? So they get the cap rate or the property price is priced accordingly, right? It's based on those restricted rents. Then what they do is they go in and they, over the next couple years, as units turn over, they turn them over to Section 8 tenants, because they can then charge full market rents or even above market rents, because Section 8 is paying the bulk of those rents. The tenants do come out of pocket for some of it, but LIHTC rules only restrict what the tenant can themselves come out of pocket for, right? So if Section 8 is paying for 2/3 of the rent, 3/4 of the rent, and the tenant's only paying their fractional portion, then still meets the LIHTC rules, but you as the owner are collecting full market rents or even above that, and you know exactly how much Section 8 allows you to charge in that market. They publish it every year. So we invested in a deal. It was a portfolio of 2 properties in Mississippi, and they bought these properties at a low cost relative, a low price, given the restricted rents, and they are going through and just turning over these units with full market rent paying, or even higher than market rent paying, Section 8 tenants. So, and the cap, the Section 8 caps on these are huge. So they're creating value in these properties that has nothing to do with renovation or that heavy lift that's required by a big renovation project, right? They actually create the value in these before that value is added, when they buy it at the super deep discount for the LIHTC restricted rents. So from there, it's just a matter of execution in putting in good Section 8 tenants. That's all that's required of them. They're still going to do a little bit of property improvements here and there, but the value that they're adding to the deal is really coming before they even purchase it. So that was one niche strategy that we liked. Again, we like these niche strategies, right? Like we love all that kind of stuff. They have a clever niche that they operate in. Another deal that we liked, it was a portfolio of 2 what they call select service hotels. Select service being like workforce hotels. It's not a motel, but it's not like a resort either. I mean, it's for business travelers, that sort of thing. And both of these hotels were located right outside of Fort Knox. So almost all of the clientele they're just government contractors or government workers visiting Fort Knox. So very stable clientele base. Doesn't really have anything to do with whether there's a recession or whether the economy is booming. Doesn't matter. It's pretty recession proof because it's all government workers. And they assumed it was a fixed interest 5.1% loan with over 9 years remaining on it. So I don't know whether there will be a good market for selling hotels in the next 2 or 3 years. If someone were to get like a bridge loan to do that deal, at some point in the next 9 years, there will be a good moment to sell these hotels, right? So, you take that limitation off the table. It's no longer a concern. There will be a good market for selling these at some point before that loan ends. And in the meantime, fixed low interest mortgage, very stable operating hotels. They were cash flowing from day one, started paying distributions from month one. So we like to see, again, it's a niche strategy, a niche market, but it makes sense. It makes sense, and it's low risk, and that's the kind of stuff that we look for.
But both of those, you make money. Both of those are government-backed related, I guess you would say, based on one based on proximity to government, the other based on actual government programs. So there's an amount of security to that, and then there's the fact that it sounds like both things were taken at a deep discount. So you make your, that's the biggest way to take risk off the table, is create a big margin out of the gate. And then you're like, exactly. Okay, well, we got a good basis. Well, thanks for sharing those 2 strategies. I'm going to wrap it up with an area not as sexy as the other ones, but I know you've got a lot of thoughts and experience in them. It's part of your forte, and that's the financing. And the question would be, you can take it in one of two directions. Either what you're doing today to solve financing problems, it sounds like not a lot because you're investing fractionally, but maybe something you've seen with one of these project niche related, or something you've done in the past creatively that would be helpful to people on the financing front.
Yeah. So a couple points about that. So one of the tools that we offer on our website for active investors is we have this enormous page on our site dedicated to comparing different lenders who specialize in different types of loans. So you can compare portfolio lenders, who are selling long-term mortgages for landlords, that sort of thing. Construction lenders, hard money lenders, the short-term fix and flip kind of loans, all that stuff. So that's a resource that we're constantly updating on our site. Comparing the interest rates that they're charging, the down payments that they're requiring, all that kind of stuff. It's part of what we encourage people to start thinking of as a financing toolkit that they can draw on as needed. When people first go out and try to buy a rental property or flip a house, often they only know of one way to finance it, right? So when I got my first rental property, for example, what did I do? Went to just a standard conventional mortgage lender because I didn't know any better, right? And that's what the average rental investor does. They just call up their mortgage broker who they use to buy their own home because that's all they know. What we try to encourage people to do is start thinking three-dimensionally about building out a financing toolkit of all these different types of loans or financing options that they can do. Learning how to negotiate seller financing, for example, building relationships with portfolio lenders who keep their loans in-house and they're not just pigeonholing them in conforming loan programs and bundling them and selling them off. Hard money lenders, there's a time and a place for that, of course. We work with a company, excuse me, we work with a company who they're a business credit concierge service, and they really specialize in working with real estate investors. So what they do is over the course of 1 year, they do what they call 3 rounds of fundraising for you. What they're really doing is they're helping you open unsecured business credit cards and business lines of credit that you can then draw on as needed for your real estate investing business, whether that means drawing on them for down payments, drawing on them for renovation costs, using it for your marketing costs, such as direct mail campaigns, whatever it is in your business that you need help with. They will help you open somewhere between usually $100,000 and $250,000 in unsecured business credit. Again, not secured with a lien against any of your properties. It's just business credit. And if you are a real estate investor, you're in business. So you qualify for business credit. And it's great flexible financing. Often the interest rates can be high, but they will go out and they'll try to find you those really good introductory APR cards and lines of credit where it's like 0% APR for the first 18 months sort of thing. 18 months, that's probably time. That's enough time to flip a few houses, right? More than a few, potentially. Yeah. Or to do a lot of BRRRR deals and then refinance them with a portfolio lender. So you can get creative with your financing is my larger point here by combining all of these different strategies and using them in concert with one another or using one at a time that's appropriate for whatever that deal is in the moment. I have financed a property entirely on credit cards before. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you can do these sorts of things when you start thinking more three-dimensionally about your financing.
I love that. Yeah. I like thinking that way. I've used things that way. Always think first. My wife's way more conservative. She keeps us grounded and balanced, and she handles checkbook and everything. We've done a lot of stuff from having my own house built when I was 29, using the methods I learned from Carlton Sheets, no money down financing. I think it is a really good mentality to keep your view open, your aperture wide open. If you see something good, just assume that there's a way to go ahead and get it. Because if it's really good, if it's a really good deal or something, it's really going to help you move forward, then there's ways to make it happen.
Yeah, useful stuff. And there's endless ways to get creative with this. I mean, there are gap lenders out there. You can do installment contracts. I mean, all of that sort of stuff. Start, if you are an active real estate investor, start building out that financing toolkit. Do things like wraparound mortgages. I mean, assuming the seller's loan. I mean, endless things you can do to get creative with financing if you build that expertise within yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Brian. You just gave a ton of great content as usual, all for free again. Tell people how they can get in touch with you if we haven't already covered it.
SparkRental.com is our website. You'll see our co-investing club front and center on there. You can reach out to me personally, Brian@SparkRental.com. We're on all the major social platforms, in particular YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. We have a couple of huge Facebook groups, by the way. If you were looking for an active community to be able to get like instant answers to questions, our community of active real estate investors is around 48,000 members. We have a Facebook group for passive investors. It's around 8,000 members. Also quite high engagement and active. So yeah, reach out however is best for you. And we're here. We're a mom and pop business. So, we're not going anywhere. It's not answered by a VA. Reach out to us personally.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And we'll put you in the show. Now I'm doing video podcasts for the first time. We'll put some links down here in the show notes about Brian. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, being part of the co-investing club and sitting there. And I'm definitely bringing some brandy to the show. The first time I'm looking at a property.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks for having me on. If anybody else wants to find out more about what we're doing, please come to froggycompanies.com. Check out our 3 different business areas. We also have the Froggy Fund 1 that's now open for up to $18 million. We're going to be investing that $18 million across a diverse number of assets, cash flowing and ground up. And I'm really excited about this fund and really confident that we can outperform most of the other people out there in terms of what we invest in and how we do our due diligence and the type of partners we put together. So it's great talking to you, and see you next time.